Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Said Murad. I'm a partner at Global Ventures. I'm joined today by my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Mazin Alzaidi, General Partner at STV, and Mr. Robert Herjavec, Executive Producer of Shark Tank.
Thank
Shark
you.
for 21 years.
21 years, but yet I'm only 25.
And we're here to discuss today winning investors buy-in. So we'll have different perspectives, we'll have a little bit of a chat, and then we're going to open it up to some Q&A towards the end of the session. So if you have any questions or burning questions, please feel free to hold them towards the end. And we'll kick off straight away with Robert. Robert, as a shark, you get approached by founders continuously, day in, day out. They have to pitch you in a very short amount of time. They have to win your attention and win your buy-in. What is it that you look for at that early stage, in that elevator pitch / short presentation that can really attract you towards a company or a founder?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the panel. And I have to tell you, as I walk around, the energy and the dynamicism is unbelievable. I mean, it's so tangible what's happening here and the pace of change. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I love when things go quickly, but you definitely get the feeling the region is on fire and going somewhere. So our show, we don't know anything about the people coming out to pitch to us. The average pitch is over an hour, and the first question is always, what's your name? Because we know nothing about them. We know nothing about their business. And what I always tell entrepreneurs is, it's not my responsibility to listen to you. It's your responsibility to be heard. So never assume I'm interested in what you're telling me. We film 12 hours a day. It's a long day. I run a big business. When you come out, I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, you're here. I'm so excited. You got to get my interest. And so the number one thing before you sell me on your product, before you sell me on your software, before you tell me how you've invented something that nobody in the history of mankind has ever invented, sell me on you. Because as an investor, I know that products can change, markets change, but a great entrepreneur can take a bad idea and make it great, and a crappy entrepreneur can take a great idea and make it bad. So number one, always sell me on you. Number two is you have to understand the market. How are you going to succeed in the market? The one thing we hate is when people tell us, if I just got 1% of 10% of a $40 billion business, I don't care about that. Tell me how you're going to get the first million. After you get the first million, how are you going to get to 10 million, 20 million, 40 million? It is very, 50% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. In the next 5, the next 50%. So before you tell me how you're going to take over the world, tell me how you're going to survive. And then the third one is, you got to know your numbers. You would be amazed how many people come on our show and have no idea what their numbers are.
Thank you. Very insightful. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Dr. Mazin, STV is one of the very few life cycle investors, so to speak, in the region, which means that you can invest as early as pre-seed and all the way to pre-IPO. Now, let's take what Robert said, unpack it and say, you've agreed, you've invested, you've backed the business early on, and you see that vision, you know that they're going to be part of the 50% that will succeed and go forward. How do you continue to back these businesses round after round? What do you look for? What do you need to see in a founder, in a business, as they scale and grow and move from that 1 mil to 10 mil to 100 mil and so on? Or in an ideal world, triple, 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 double, double, right? That's the unicorn formula. So if you're going to look at that, what is it that STV actually looks for? And what do you as Dr. Mazin look for?
Thank you, Said. So first, it's a pleasure, Robert, and thank you for everyone attending here today. So I guess first, we're very lucky that we invested in around 29 companies from our Fund 1 and STV. Most of them are leaders within their sectors. We usually bet on the team as one of the main kind of elements when considering investing in a company. Of course, the product, the market, etc. Like any venture fund, it's it's more about how fast the company can go. And I guess we were very lucky at some point of time when STV was founded by my partner Abdurrahman Tarabzuni in 2018, when he decided that he's going to raise a $500 million fund. At that point of time, the whole market in Saudi, it was 50 million. So you're like 10 times of the size of the market,
Wow.
and you're the size of MENA. And everybody at that point of time was telling Abdurrahman, like, man, you're crazy. Where are you going to deploy all this money? But I think it's more about looking and how we envisioned what's going to happen in the region in Saudi at that point of time. And hopefully, through the different investment that STV has deployed, and reaching this point today, we realized actually it's kind of a smaller fund than we anticipated. So part of it is that we usually would do our first investment in a company. And maybe I'll give an example here with Tabi. Tabi, we participated in their Series A. Tabi, which is now buy now, pay later, the leading kind of buy now, pay later in the region. The newest unicorn in MENA. They just reached unicorn at a valuation of 1.5 billion a couple of weeks ago. We're very proud of Hussam and his team.
We joined you on that.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
At the Series A.
And we're proud of course, all our partners that joined in that round. We met Hussam at Series A when he was just accessing the Saudi market. We invested with him, we participated. We co-led the following 2 rounds, BC. And we also participated in the D round that was just recently, which was around $200 million. And just taking Tabi as an example, which we have other amazing companies as well, is that it's about how fast the company can grow. How can you utilize the capital that has been raised in a very efficient way that you can grow your company. And I can give this in a very simple example in Tabi, is that he raised 2 rounds this year. One was in January, which was Series C,
Sequoia.
and just November now with Sequoia, we co-invested, and D, which was a couple of weeks ago. So how the company can grow, how can you scale fast enough that it's not just about how can you spend money, but it's about how can you really build a team and scale and build that engine in a way that it doesn't stop. And Tabi was able to do that, which made us invest in A, B, C, D, and hopefully we're predicting in the next maybe 18 to 24 months for them to go to IPO. So usually we're growth stage focused. We've done exceptions for early stage, pre-seed, seed, but on opportunistic kind of opportunities. But I think it's more about even the relationship between the founder and the shareholders, which is very, very important, that sometimes founders do not give it the best attention possible, because at the end, your shareholders are with you. They're going to be with you to the end of the road. They will be supporting you ahead with all the kind of barriers or challenges that you face. They will try to maximize the value that you can bring. I guess, trying to summarize that in some way, it mainly depends on the company and how fast it's growing, in addition to the team that's able to scale it in a very interesting way. And by the way, for Tabi, as a buy now, pay later, it's the first, and I guess it's the only, I'm not sure, but don't quote me for this, profitable buy now, pay later in the world. So this just shows you how unique of a market that we have here in the region that's very exciting.
That's the thing that we've seen is such a great point, scale. Nobody wants to invest in a company that's going to grow by 10%. But the biggest change we've seen in the last 2 years is you have to have a path to profitability.
100%.
The time of just spending money to buy blind growth has come and gone. So you don't necessarily have to be profitable, but you have to have that path to profitability.
Totally agree.
It's the scalable unit economics. I mean, from our perspective, as a Series A investor, 25% of our portfolio is profitable.
Wow.
So it is scalable unit economics that everyone looks for in this region, at least we do.
I think it's so interesting, too, that what we find is the world has become such a dynamic, connected place that money and investment and opportunity flows to great ideas, not always to the region. what I'm finding is in the last few years, the bias of investing in this region or that region is going away. People are more driven by ideas and the power of the idea as opposed to where it came from. I mean, you look at, I was born in a communist country. I escaped with my mom and dad at 8 years old, came on a boat to Canada, moved to America, and now I run a global business. And that globalism has really taken foot now, especially with social media now.
Yeah.
The world has become so connected.
And as an operator, how do you view the world differently as an investor? It's because you are at the core of it and at the heart of it, an absolute operator.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I love to operate. So I operate a relatively large company. I started this company 17 years ago with 1 employee, and we're now 1,100 people, and we do about $1 billion in sales. And up until 2 years ago, I owned 100% of it. And so I love to invest, and I love to back people, but I also love to operate. You know, the thing for me, especially in the theme you have here, is I look for people that believe in opportunity and themselves. You know, I was talking to Sarah, who was kind enough to bring me here, and I'm amazed what's going on in the region, and I'm so excited. So for me, I always look for your greatest asset in your company is your people, and then the product or the software or the technology. But we look for people that are dynamic and excited to be around. When I started my first company, I had no money. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was the most fun guy you'd want to deal with. And I always think when you have nothing to sell, you have to sell joy, and you have to sell happiness, and you have to be present. And so as you get to scale at 1,000 people or 2,000 people, for us, culture becomes one of the most critical points of operating a business. How do we instill that culture of dynamicism and belief? And it's not an age thing. It's just, do I believe that you want to get ahead in life?
Thank you. Dr. Mazin, you spoke earlier about investing at the growth stage. We are at an inflection point from an ecosystem perspective where we are witnessing and seeing a little bit of a gap at the growth stage. I think STV, about a month ago, published a report titled Mind the Gap, where you talk about the mismatch of demand and supply for growth equity. Can you share a little bit about what do you see in this space and in an area where there's sort of a mismatch in demand and supply? How does that change your perspective as an investor, and what do you look for?
Sure. So, we did publish a report around a month ago, trying to illustrate how we've and show our analysis and insights when it comes to what gaps we've seen through the funding cycle, especially at the growth stage. And I think this is based on that we have around 5 to 6 companies that are very close from IPO, that have that generate more than $100 million revenue on an annual basis, and they're almost 18 to 24 months of reaching, inshallah, IPO on Tadawul. Based on our analysis, the number of companies that have raised funding in the region since 2018, around 2,000 companies. The number of companies that have raised Series A are around 200, so almost 10% out of that, that are looking to raise B, C, D, and continue on. Then we looked at also what available dry powder is there in the region. And based on estimates, it's around 4.2 billion. But actually, for these companies to be able to reach later stage vesting rounds and be able to reach IPO, based on our estimations and projections, it's around 25 billion. So if you have around 5 billion today of dry powder, then there's a gap of 20 billion, which we see as actually a very huge gap in the next couple of years, and this is not like 20 years from now. It's like in the next 5 to 6 years, reaching 2030.
Wow.
And the whole idea of the gap is that we wanted to share this with the ecosystem and try to, because we feel a responsibility, since we're the largest growth stage fund here in the MENA region, independent kind of investor, that we should share this with the ecosystem. We've also came up with a couple of solutions, suggestions that we think need to be considered. We think that the government has a huge role to play here when it comes to intervention, several sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, endowment funds, which usually would invest in later stage. It's less here in the region. We see a bit of direct that's happening once in a while, even from family offices and government investment institutes, which is not sustainable in the long term. So this gap kind of shows us that the life cycle at some point, or the companies that are also getting at early stage and moving to the late stage, next 5 years or beyond, are going to face that lack of availability and capital, which we believe that hopefully, based on all the support that the ecosystem has received in the last couple of years, especially at the early stage. So we had no early stage funds at some point of time. Today, we have tens of early stage funds in Saudi and the region. And we think now it's kind of a normal kind of, let's say, growth where the early stage has been established in a very good way with accelerators, early stage funds, angel investors. And now there's this establishment, or let's say move into growth stage, and supporting that more to be able to fill that gap. We believe foreign kind of growth stage funds should have the opportunity also to invest more here. More growth stage funds. You need 10 STVs or the size of STV to be able to employ in the region, to be able to reach or kind of fill that gap at some point of time.
And I think just on the ecosystem itself, right? If you go back to around about 2017 or so, total ecosystem was about 400 mil, as you alluded to earlier.
Yes.
Last year, the MENA ecosystem in its entirety deployment was 3.2 billion.
True.
So while the ecosystem has effectively 8 to 10x, if you will, there's still a gap. But hopefully we're seeing a lot more interest in the region. The region is also poised as one of the last frontier markets globally. And so we're seeing a lot of international interest in the region, in deploying in the region, in companies in the region. And so there is a responsibility on us from the region to do this, but also to attract the right capital to come in and support as well. So I absolutely agree with you, and thank you for sharing that and shedding light on it.
And even Said, when you look at the first half of 2023, compared to the first half of 2022, even for foreign investor coming in, it has a drop this year of around 40%. So we already can see the gap actually kind of expanding more.
Well, I'd be amiss not to ask both of you gentlemen this question. I'll start with you, Robert. What advice do you have for the founders, the investors, the entrepreneurs, and the youth that are sitting here with us in the audience today?
Well, my first piece of advice is, business is for the young. And the reason, and I don't just mean in physical age, I mean in attitude. We used to say the business moves at the speed of lightning. We have that expression in America. With COVID, we now say business moves at the speed of COVID. So you look at what happened during COVID globally. In those 2 years, everything we thought was going to happen in technology over 10 years happened in 2. COVID was the greatest compression of business cycles in history. Cloud computing, social media, e-commerce, online transactions. There is no barrier to entry for age, young or old. But my advice to young people, I think in general is, first of all, I wish I was younger. So if somebody can invent something to make me younger, I'll invest. You have to believe in yourself. Starting a business is incredibly difficult. And it's kind of like being on TV. You get way more rejection than you get positivity. It's like sales. People are going to turn you down far more than they're going to agree with you. Howard Schultz, who founded Starbucks, went to 330 VC firms before he got the first round of funding for Starbucks. I just bought his plane, and he told me this story. And I have to tell you, would I have gone to the 330 first? I probably would have given up after 200. But you just got to believe in yourself. And I think the other thing is you have to have a vision greater than yourself. I've never met somebody really successful who did it just for the money. I've always met people who do great things with great purpose. There is no such thing as a great company or a great business without a great purpose. And I think you find that in the founders. I think it's rare you sit with the founder and you say, why did you start this company? And they say, oh, because I want to buy a new car. They want to do great things. And so you got to have that vision and that purpose. And my last piece of advice is be a disruptor. It's very difficult to be a me too. Do something that's different. Don't be afraid to challenge the way things have always been done. And you're in the best region to do that. Look at the pace of change you're talking about in 5 years. The pace of change here is dizzying. We don't think it's happening that fast, but I think there's such a massive opportunity here.
Thank you. Dr. Mazin.
Yeah, so I wouldn't add a lot of Robert. You kind of put me in a very weird spot, but it's. I think one thing that I want to mention for young people, I think there's two things that you guys need to consider today. One is the whole idea of the vision. We need to always go back. The whole idea of the Vision 2030 is to diversify the economy. Diversifying the economy is that not being dependent on oil, having new businesses. This is the pure core of the vision. In the same time, the opportunities that exist and are limitless in the country, in the region, requires a lot of innovation. And did you know that more than 50% of the population is youth here in Saudi?
Is youth.
Yes.
How do you define youth? Under 35?
Under 35. It's just amazing.
So irritating.
So
Am I the oldest person in Saudi right now?
But the whole idea is that there's so much of an opportunity and innovation that could be poured and fueled within this vision. So I think seizing that opportunity is very important. I was mentioning just to Robert, my son Wabil, he's in the back here on the stage. And I was telling him that he wants to start a business. He's 15 or 16 years old. I'm telling you, you need to really finish your education first. Opportunities are limitless. You just need to focus on building value. And I think it goes back, building value to be able to maximize and get the ultimate out of the opportunity that exists today, and being able to support this vision that we all are really proud of today. And we can see how fruitful it has been in a journey in the last just couple of years, and we're just looking ahead of what you guys can definitely build and make a difference.
The power, I think the power of youth is the dream of the possible. Because as we get older, we tend to narrow our belief on what can happen. Your vision and the country's vision of 2030, just think about what an audacious goal that is. It's not the dream of 2050. It's like that's 7 years from now, 6 years from now. I mean, what a great time to be young in Saudi.
Exciting times, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. We did promise to open up the floor for some Q&A. And so if we can get the mics, please, and get the questions.
We can repeat. Oh, sorry.
Okay, hi, I'm Faris Al-Madani. Thank you for being here today. So clearly, when it comes to assessing the success of a startup, we look at sales usually and profitability. However, what do investors look other than financial stability when it comes to developing your MVP and your early stages?
I'm happy to take that. Yeah. So at an MVP stage, it's more about just validating the business and making sure that there is a need for the product in the market. Usually, if you have something that people are willing to buy and the market is large enough, things will just work out. Building the team, being able to raise capital, etc. Things will follow ahead and it will be put in a good place going ahead.
Perfect. Thank you.
Go ahead. It's right there.
Well, hello, Robert. Hello, Dr. Mazin. And I'm one of the youth here, and I would like to welcome you to Riyadh.
Thank you.
It's a great place to be here today. The flagship of Miska Global this year is Big Now. What is Big Now in your brain? When there is Big Now, what do you like to share with us about Big Now as an investor? Second question is, you're talking with a lot of youth today, and this youth has two fears. One of the fears, how can you destroy your fears inside and outside? Second thing is, how can you upskill your self-confidence? So when you are failing and you're going down, you're still going up and fighting for your vision and the dreams more than the money you're talking about it. And that's something I think you can share with us, and you can inspire the whole audience with the way you are looking to the investor and how can you grow as a youth and to become as a good leaders, you and Dr. Mazin. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. That's such a great question and well thought out. So I'll start with the second one first. You know, like I said earlier, your business is a reflection of you. Any business is really just a collection of people and culture that create things. They create technology, they create a service. What's really hard about fear, you know, when we do the show in America, people come up to me all the time and they say, I wish I was born like you. I wish I could talk to people. I wish I had your confidence. And I always think, what are you talking about? When I was in my 20s, I was deathly afraid of my own shadow. I couldn't talk to another human being. And part of it is where I was born in my culture, we weren't comfortable about talking about ourselves. The idea of talking about how good you are seemed like you were being arrogant or full of bravado. So the Eastern European culture is, if you're great at something, the world is going to find you. What I learned was that is completely not true. The world will never find you. You have to go out into the world and tell the world about yourself. There is no genius in the darkness of a basement. And so for me, I had to overcome that fear. You just got to do it. And at a certain point, you're going to have a decision to make. Either the situation of your life will be so hard that you will keep going and change and make yourself more confident and do it again and live with the fear and do it again. Because the easiest way to overcome fear is just to simply do it. Or you will accept your situation and not grow. I came from such poverty that I didn't want to be poor anymore. I didn't want to be necessarily rich. I just didn't want to be poor, so I had to change my situation. To your first question, you know, the time is now. People always tell you, oh, you got to wait. When I was 21, people said, oh, when you're 30, you'll be able to buy a house, you'll be able to do this. I don't want to do it at 30, I want to do it at 23. There is nothing stopping you from doing it now. You now have access to capital, to equity in this region. The world is a global place. There is no proprietary lock on ideas in America or Canada or Australia. You can do it here and you can go out in the world and do it. And guess what? Nobody cares about your age. Nobody. Somebody comes in, tells me about a great idea. I never say, wow, that's a great idea. I think I can make a lot of money, but you're only 25. Nobody cares. Just go out and do it.
If I can just add one thing to Robert,
Thank you.
I guess it's dreaming. I mean, when you mentioned the big now, I think it's dreaming. I'm gonna steal something that I got from my partner Abdurrahman, which the opportunity that you يعني mentions a lot is that the thing that we got from this country today is a license to dream. You have a license to dream. Sky's the limit. I guess that's what's big now, and this is what's happening here in Saudi. Alhamdulillah.
Can we take one more question? Last one? I think over there in the back, please.
عليكم. السلام عليكم.
عليكم
منيرة
السلام.
مشخص. I ask by Arabic, please.
Please.
Mr. Robert, Mr. Ziad, is very, I am interesting about your talk. سؤالي طبعا أستاذ زياد، احنا في المملكة العربية والسعودية وفي دول الخليج نسبة الشباب 60%، وعلى مستوى العالم نلاحظ أنه الأجيال القديمة تتلاشى والأجيال الجديدة تتكاثر، لكن من الملاحظ أن الشركات العائلية التي لها أكثر من 50 أو 60 أو 100 عام بدأت تتلاشى. لماذا في ظل هذه المتغيرات السريعة والتكنولوجيا المتسارعة، لكن كل يوم نشهد اختفاء شركات، خسارة شركات؟ هل العقول القديمة the old generation and the new generation ما التقوا في الأفكار رغم أن التطور السريع خصوصا في ظل الذكاء الاصطناعي، في ظل الإنترنت، في ظل السوشيال ميديا، بسرعة ممكن بضغط الزر تحدث تطورات وأيضا اتفاقيات. نحن في المملكة العربية والسعودية وفي أستراليا من الممكن أن نجد الآن شراكات عالمية by the Zoom. فما هي الأسباب التي لا يعني أو جددتها لعدم التقاء عقلية القديمة مع العقلية الشبابية الآن؟ وشكرا.
Shukran. I'll translate that.
Do you want me to take that? Sure. No, just
I can give a quick question if you mind, if I can do it in Arabic.
Of course.
Just ask it in Arabic. But هي ما هي بس الشركات العائلية، هي كل الشركات. هي إنه الشركات إذا ما كانت تواكب التطور والابتكار وتكون مبتكرة، الطبيعي إنها تموت، وهذه أثبتت على يعني مئات السنين. يمكن لو أبغى بس أختصر الموضوع، هو الابتكار ومواكبة التطور بحيث أن الشركات هذه تظل يعني في الساحة وتظل أنها تنمو وتظل أنها تستطيع أنها تنتج في السوق بشكل يعني واضح ويكون في استدامة، لكن ما لها علاقة صراحة بالشركات العائلية بشكل خاص. يمكن ملاحظ أكثر لكنها على جميع أنواع الشركات بغض النظر عن نوع الشركة.
The question was on with 60% of the regional population being youth, and with older family businesses transitioning from first gen to second gen to third gen, there's a mismatch in ideology or a mismatch in the way that businesses are run, which causes challenges or rifts and ultimately failures. What Dr. Mazin added was that it's not necessarily just family businesses, it's businesses as a whole that need to continue to develop and grow and scale, and move forward with the prevalence of technology nowadays to try and really accelerate their growth and their presence and to win market share and to continue to dominate. And so that was the short of it. This is overly summarized, but if you'd like to add anything else on where failures happen across generations.
Innovate
and
or
the lack
die?
of mutual minds.
well, innovate or die. I mean, you know, the traditional stat in North America is that by the third generation, most family businesses are out of business. Only something like 3% of fourth generation businesses have actually survived in North America. And I think people confuse growth with the product they're in. Meaning, it's not about necessarily the type of business, it's about understanding. The beauty of technology and scale today is you can bring new thinking to old ideas, old traditional businesses. One of the things we look to invest in, I talked about disruption. Can I take technology? Can I take new people, new ways of thinking to a traditional business that's always been done the same way? One of the things we always look for when we invest is when a business owner says to us, well, it's always been done this way. When somebody says that to me, I guarantee you there's somebody younger thinking who's thinking, how do I do it better? How do I do it faster? How do I do it cheaper? How do I build scale?
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, I'm being told we're out of time. So thank you both, Dr. Mazin, Robert.
Thank you.
Super insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.